The AW-UB50 is a compact box camera from Panasonic featuring a 24 megapixel full frame sensor, and that gives you that emotional and cinematic video look which is so popular these days, and that is with more than 14 stops of dynamic range using V-Log. It also supports the same IP control protocol as Panasonic PTZ cameras does, and that's of course great, although with SKAARHOJ controllers, that's just a technicality of no real importance to you, because we integrate basically everything regardless of how different it may be. In this video, I'll show you how this camera can seamlessly integrate into your shading workflow using a professional RCP from SKAARHOJ, but it doesn't stop there. You will also see how it can operate alongside PTZ cameras like the AW-UB50, and that is with clearly defined operator roles working together seamlessly. We'll start out with the RCP Pro over here, controlling the UB50, and look at all the settings that we can control from it. So you see from the output of the camera that it's a little bit dark at the moment, and one of the main features of an RCP is the RCP joystick. I would say we have one of the coolest joysticks in the world. It has a display on top that will show you the aperture of your lens. So you see, as I'm operating this joystick, I can sort of turn off or turn up the light of the image. So that's the basics of a joystick like this. It also does have a function that you can push it down, and when you do, you will send a signal to a monitor that is associated that will bring the picture of your camera up. And that is because usually you have RCPs arranged in a bay, so you have more than just one. You have one for each camera typically, and as you're pushing this joystick down, then it will just select that camera on a monitor so you can see what you are shading. All right, another feature of a professional RCP joystick is the ring, and the ring underneath here is what we call pedestal. That value is traditionally adjusted right here, but of course on a SKAARHOJ RCP you can map it to many different encoders and knobs on it, and like by tradition we also have it available on this knob, so you'll see the master pedestal is accessible here, and it's even found inside the other menus like exposure menu. There you have it in the display as well. Okay, so a few places for the master pedestal as well, but the main function, adjusting the iris of the camera, is done using the joystick here. Sometimes the lens, like the one we have right now, has discrete stops of aperture, and that means they tend to like jump in the aperture. If you apply other lenses, and yes, you can do that, because with SKAARHOJ products you have the opportunity of controlling or combining one lens body with another lens. In this case, the lens is controlled through the camera. That's great. Depending on the lens, you might have stopping or smooth iris, but all those combinations are achievable because that's what our hardware can do for you. So if we look at the other features we have here, we have an additional alternative way. Instead of pushing the joystick, we have this preview button. We have a shift key, which is sometimes useful. For example, we can actually select another camera like the AW-UB50. We won't look at that right now. We have also a lock feature that will basically just invalidate all the controls so that you can press none of those, except you can open the RCP up again. So it's like nice when you go to lunch. If we look at the menu up here, we are currently in the home menu. So in the home menu, we tend to put things that we believe are most likely to be the ones that you want to control during a production. So that has what we have selected for that is the white balance mode. We have red and blue gain. We have color temperature. We have whether the iris is in manual mode like right now, or if it's in auto mode, focus, speed, etc. But if we move on to the other menus, you'll see the principle of the SKAARHOJ controllers. We make a menu which is called exposure, and inside of that you can control whether your iris is set to auto or manual, and you can also choose what the gain mode is. Currently I had it gained a little bit. I'll just gain it up again to about 14 or 16. You see the immediate effect on the output of the image. Of course you do, because we are controlling it. We have automatic shutter that we can turn on and off, and if it is off on the automatic shutter, we have step mode, synchro mode. Those are all known features from the Panasonic camera lineup. I remember these for decades basically being around. And of course, if you change the shutter speed, you'll see the immediate effect on your output as well. So that's the exposure menu. All the basics is right there. Moving on to the color menu, it gets more interesting in terms of shading. So the job of the RCP operator, apart from the basics of controlling the pedestal and the aperture of the lens is also to manage the color balance of the lens. So in here we have red and blue gain, which currently I've set to some extreme values here. I think if I press and hold, we'll reset them to 0, and you saw a change in the image. So now it's more greenish to me. Maybe that's my monitor here. But in any case, that's your job as the shading operator to actually adjust that. And you can do that on these knobs. We also have the pedestal red, green, and blue. Here we see a significant effect in the more dark areas of the image. And finally, the master pedestal, which is the same as the value we had down here. Let's just reset these values once again. They are, of course, very important, relevant, etc. Finally, we have the white balance mode that's currently set to variable. And if we choose presets, we have different types of presets here. Indoor preset, outdoor preset. We have auto white balance B. So these is where you can trigger the white balance on a target. And we have auto tracking white balance here. Let's just set it back to variable once again. And keep it up here. And move on to some of... No, wait. No. Okay, so let's just move on. We have knee and skin modes here. So knee has different modes. We can also set from the RCP. We have skin details we can turn on and off, and there are some settings associated with that. Moving on to the next menu, we have zoom and control speed and curve. I would say that these are, I don't think they work on this camera, but they are generally a part of the Panasonic PTZ camera lineup, obviously, especially zoom, of course, because on this lens, it's a manual zoom lens, so it wouldn't matter. But anyway, these settings are there, typically probably more relevant on a PTZ camera. And you'll see that in a moment, how that's mapped out on the PTZ Extreme, which is next to me right here. So we have a matrix settings up here, linear matrix, and we have matrix saturation. And with these, we actually have an extra level. So if you notice this shift key or paging key we have here will page between 2 pages of matrix settings for all the dimensions of saturation you can set here. So we have saturation, we have phase, we have 16 different dimensions that we can set that in, which is pageable by this paging button. Going back to the linear matrix, we have the standard red, green, red, blue, green, red, etc. We can try to poke a little bit at one of these here, like the green, blue, turn some of the other knobs as well. And you'll see some slight changes in the image when we are doing this. We can also reset all of these values again, so you bring it back. So these are really very detailed settings of the image where you can specifically take a color dimension of your image and tweak that. If you are an RCP operator, shading operator, you know all these things and you'll appreciate them, and this is what sets apart a professional camera like these from the rest, basically. Moving on in the menu, we have OSD, on-screen menus, or on-screen display menus that you can navigate around in, so we can turn the on-screen menu on and off here. I'm not sure it's on the output of the camera, otherwise we would have seen it, but there are some other BNC jacks on the backside of it, so it may be found there. Moving on to system, there are some system settings we can either change or we can read out here. And finally, we are back to the first page. So there are 10 pages in this menu, which is selectable here. Each of these pages is addressable here. All the settings are adjusted by the encoders up here. And then you have the most important, the iris map down onto the joystick. So we talked about having multiple cameras on the same network here. Now, first of all, if you want to turn your AW-UB50 into a PTZ camera, you can put it on a pan tilt head. And just like you could change the lens and have the lens separately controlled from the joystick, you can also have a pan tilt head controlled like if that UB50 was a PTZ camera. So on a PTZ controller, the joystick, pan and tilt, would move the head, which is one piece of hardware. If you turn the handle, it would zoom the lens. That would be another piece of hardware. And if you go into any of the menus, you would adjust the sensor settings in the camera, and that would be the camera. So like 2, 3, 4 different things operating seamlessly as one product. And that's one of the things you can do with SKAARHOJ devices. Now, one cool thing is that what you saw over here, when I could select another camera, the AW-UB50, namely this one, that camera I can also select down here. So I can now move this with the joystick. So that's the pan tilt axis on a true PTZ camera. here, but and I can't do that on the RCP because it doesn't have a joystick like that. But if I go into the home menu and home menu up here, you'll see that now operating this camera, changing, say, the white balance mode from auto tracking white balance on one controller, you see it's also changing down here. So they can work simultaneously. And if I change something down here, it will change up here. Now, this would typically be a camera operating, dealing with the framing of the image. This would be the shading operating, dealing with the color. They should not touch each other's controls. And if you're concerned about that, you know what? With SKAARHOJ, you have a UI like the one you see right here. This is the UI of RCP Pro, where we have set up those two cameras that we are communicating to with the IP addresses and the specific configurations that defines what gets into the menus and so on. But you could always go into the configuration page and you could actually navigate into that particular section. Let's say we click here, we go into the exposure section. If you want to block out the ability to set auto iris, you could basically remove this behavior from that knob and it would be blanked out. So there's a lot of ways you can customize the controllers. The main point is that it's typically two different operator concerns that these products are for, but they are running on the same software, talking to the camera simultaneously, having even the same structure here in the menu. So you'll see what we see on the RCP is basically just mapped out on 8 encoders on a line. Here they are 8 encoders in a matrix. We also have things like preset recall on a controller like this one. So if we are on the AW-UB50, recalling a preset means it gets into some sort of position here, which is pre-programmed and stored, and that is of course not available on a static box camera like this, unless you add that PTZ head or pan tilt head that I was talking about just a moment ago. If you're curious about what you can do, then reach out to our support team, because they may help you to understand which are the most obvious combinations you can do of lenses, cameras, and also pan tilt heads to achieve specific effects that you are looking for. Before we end this video, let's just quickly look at the RCP again, as it is controlling the UB50, and also over here we have UB50 on the PTZ controller. Now again, the joystick won't do anything to your UB50 camera unless you put it on a pan tilt head. But again, as I showed on the AW-UB50 camera, the menus are basically mirrored on these two products, just like you saw for the other camera. So as I go through, and if you look at the titles of the menus, the number of pages it has, it is all the same things. Here you have the matrix phase saturation and linear matrix. You also have the paging key, the shift key over here. So it is basically the same. If you want to think about SKAARHOJ controllers in the most effective way, because we have so many different variations, it is that these products, they are different form factors, but running on the same software base. They have always the same capabilities. These two controllers can do the same to that camera. There's just a difference in what hardware arrangement we have. Like here we have a joystick. This product is meant for PTZ cameras. This one is meant for shading. This is how we operate, you know? We have the same software controlling all the same devices, but you pick the SKAARHOJ controller depending on the use case that you have in mind. And that's a really great way to look at our lineup, because it helps you understand how these are Legos you can basically combine to achieve the exact type of production efficiency that you're looking for. Hit like and subscribe to keep up with the latest innovations from SKAARHOJ. You can also join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And for deep insights, expert tips, feature updates, you can subscribe to our newsletter. And of course, if you need help, the SKAARHOJ sales and support team is ready to help you to get the most out of your setup. And the links to all that good stuff is in the description below.